few weeks, there has been a growing public opinion against the unfair charges levied by the bank. Customers over the past few weeks have non-transparent and arbitrary charges levied by them is a major pain point, and they want this system to be transparent. Earlier, all the cash withdrawals at the bank branches were free, but now the banks, after 4 free transactions, they will charge a customer with minimum 150 rupees.
I think that is wrong on behalf of banks to charge more than what you can say the customer has to pay at a reduced rate.
Challenge we are facing is, as an existing customer, we are not being given any option to which will avail the new cut down rates, but it is only available for the new customer.
Banks will never proactively come to you and say that there are loans rates have come down, why don't you opt for it? But I think yes, people have to make their effort either to switch over or otherwise they have to negotiate with the bank.
Private banks are always cheating their clients and not bringing down the rates. They are continue with the previous higher rates.
It's unfair, I think. They should make it all equal. Right? If the government rule has that, it should be equal for all.
Well, 15 days ago, viewers, I made a commitment on this channel that we will pick up this story and we will hammer at it every 15 days, every couple of weeks until we get the attention of the RBI, of the Indian Bank Association and of every individual bank. Here I am keeping my promise, as I will every couple of weeks from now. Every 15 days we're going to pick up the story and we're going to continue to talk about it till we drum up enough noise that we are actually able to action a change. Remember, the State Bank of India, which is meant to help the lower middle class, and now post demonetization meant to help every Indian have a bank account, expects us all to keep 5,000 rupees minimum balance in our bank accounts, and if we don't, they begin to cut a charge out of your money on a monthly basis. I want to remind you of something. Remember that SBI is used as a bank by the poorest of the banking customers, people who work as cleaners, people who work as office boys, people who work as bus drivers, people who are in college. Now, if there's someone who's getting paid 10,000 rupees a month in their SBI bank account, can they afford to maintain 5,000 rupees off that as a minimum balance without spending? Can you afford to keep half your salary in your bank account just because SBI has decided that that is a good way to make money and to make up for the fact that credit growth is not what they would have liked it to be? I want to point out the fact that ICICI Bank, that HDFC Bank, that Axis Bank and several other banks have begun now charging for transactions. If you withdraw money more than 4 times a month, you are now charged 150 rupees as transaction fees for withdrawing what is effectively your own money. Where is the ethical line here? And why is it that the RBI, that is meant to regulate these banks, has been caught napping over and over again and simply no longer takes its job as a customer protector seriously? Why don't these banks need to function with a conscience? Is it because they're all banded together and turned themselves into a cartel that seems to think that it can do whatever it wants? I want to ask you this very simple question. If we decide today as customers, if you and I decide that, hey, listen, I don't want to pay this extra transaction fee of 150 rupees per transaction. I'm not going to give you my business anymore, Mr. Bank. I am going to another bank. Is there another bank to go to? Or have they formed a cartel where they are all charging you money so you don't have another choice? The truth is that the banks are functioning like schoolyard bullies and the RBI is asleep. You and I as customers continue to pay for services that ought to be free, and none of this, absolutely none of this, is ethical. I want to invite on the show tonight Harsh Roongta. He is a SEBI Registered Investment Advisor. Dhirendra Kumar, a CEO of Value Research. Sucheta Dalal, Managing Editor of Moneylife and the Trustee of MoneyLifeIndia. Fernandes is a home loan borrower who's found himself on the wrong side of the bank's ethical line. Vishwas Utagi is the General Secretary of the Maharashtra State Bank Employees Federation. He's also the Vice President of the All India Bank Employees Association. Sujay Kantawala is a very senior lawyer. We also have Bejon Mishra, who is an activist and speaks on behalf of customers. I will go first to Dhirendra Kumar. Dhirendra Kumar, RBI has not just been caught napping. The RBI has abdicated its position of customer protector. It seems very uninterested in the job.
Yes, RBI has lacks the credible track record of protecting investors or customers' interest at all times. RBI has is renowned for doing a lot of things, and it's is quite credible when it comes to monetary policy and other areas of the economic activity. But on this front, I think time and again we come across a situation where RBI has not been acting in the best interest of the customers, or many a times it is caught on the other side, siding with the bank. And these particular cases, the ones which we see right now, or in the past, if we have seen the mis-selling by banks, and which has been rampant when it comes to insurance-linked investment, the big scandal, I haven't come across any happy customer in the last 10 years who bought insurance-linked investment and says that, wow, he got a great product. And when we, many of the regulatory changes brought about to, a clampdown to mis-selling is primarily a result or a failure of RBI to curb those, or control those mis-selling or poor activities of the banks.
Absolutely. I want to bring in Sucheta Dalal. You've been battling and you've been fighting this battle for a very, very long time, but the RBI won't even give you a meeting. It won't even consider this battle of customer protection important enough to respond. And I want to bring up to our viewers here that we've written to the RBI repeatedly from this channel. We've not received a response. The RBI won't even respond to us, Sucheta.
Well, I think we are slightly better off. We wrote to them, we sent a memorandum to them saying that protect digital customers, okay? Because today the onus of something going wrong is on you, the customer. You have to prove that you did nothing wrong. While all over the world, it is a banker's responsibility to prove that you did something wrong. You went and, gave your PIN number to someone or gave away your password. Now, RBI said digital transactions and fraud has been increasing tremendously. They said this in May. In August, they issued draft guidelines. We wrote to them a month ago saying, isn't it time you convert those draft guidelines into a master circular and a proper regulation? Well, we've just got a letter yesterday saying they're still thinking about it and they'll take their time. In other words, buzz off, we will issue it when we think fit. So coming back to what you were saying earlier, yes, the RBI does not care. And, we have just started a change petition. I think Dhirendra Kumar, Harsh Roongta are all signatories. You should just read the anger of people. Yes. And this is when the Prime Minister says that the middle class is bearing the burden of everything that's going wrong. We're paying taxes, we're being charged. And when it's nationalized banks and public sector banks like State Bank of India, which are actually charging more than private banks. In fact, from your own group, ET Wealth carried an article saying, is your bank robbing you? I mean, now the message has to go across. If everybody is using the words, banks are cheating you, robbing you, taking you for a ride, I think it's time the regulator, the policy makers, the Prime Minister takes a look at what's going on. Absolutely. Because, ET showed that SBI's charges are the highest for everything. They are higher than even the private bank. So where do you go? People talk about, migrating to another bank. But if the nationalized banks are going to charge you as much or more, where is the safety? At least a nationalized bank is safe.
SBI charging us more than everything else. Banks functioning like a cartel. RBI not doing its job. Bejon Mishra, this sounds like daylight robbery, and daylight robbery of average tax-paying customers who this government has encouraged to keep its money in the bank.
Absolutely. You see, in the financial sector, the consumers have nothing to do with accountability, transparency. There is no regulator. Actually, RBI is not a regulator, it looks like. We need now a strong regulator for the financial products and services. See, look at the banks. They need to show their efficiency. Look at the NPAs which are there. Who is paying for it? Now they're going to be loan waivers. Now, who is going to pay for that? I mean, come on now. It's a joke now. That we as taxpayers and as customers, we are lending our money and then we are not being made, nobody is answerable to us in terms of our money. It's a really sad situation. You see, no consultation. They don't even consult us when they talk about policies. They just, in an arbitrary manner, they will just make out a policy which is completely anti-consumer. And I don't understand what the policymakers are thinking. I don't know what the elected representatives are doing in the parliament. I mean, are they not customers? Don't they realize this? And they get elected as our representative and they have no time to represent our problems. And here we are struggling to be heard. And as you very rightly said, they don't even respond. Sometimes they do, it's in their whims and fancy. You see, what we need to understand now is either RBI wakes up and develops a good regulatory mechanism in the interest. I am not saying that you be biased with us. I am saying you at least as a regulator be unbiased, neutral, but give right decisions which is going to improve the banking sector in India and going to also give value for money to the customers. I am not able to understand when the Prime Minister, when everybody who is in the finance ministry will understand this. They have a dedicated officer within the finance ministry to look at the banking sector. I don't know what kind of a work he is doing. Is he only interested in transfers and appointments of chairmen board members of the banks? Or is he interested in the
how
customers?
desperate are the
I'm not
banks
able to
right
understand
now
all
to
this.
make money? And how much pressure is on bank employees to be able to squeeze money out of the system? Because let's be honest, they're not making money from the normal growth rates that they're used to. So they're trying to find new ways to make up for the loss of business. What is the experience for bank employees right now?
For the last 15 years, we have seen the foreign sector banks, the private sector banks, more particularly, are squeezing the customers, but they are high net worth customers. So far,
so it's okay to squeeze them if they're high net worth customers.
No, my point is because they were lending them and they were permitting. Those high net worth customers were permitting all those service charges and all sorts of charges which foreign bank and private bank were charging them. Here the new thing is, if I am withdrawing my money, my own money, and I am putting my own money in my account, so a deposit is being charged for the first time.
Yes.
And when these 4 or 5 private sector banks have started doing it from 1st March, the largest public sector bank is starting with 50 rupees. This is absurd.
Yes.
The question is, the model which is being practiced, model of banking, the way they make their profits, the same thing is made, it is being imposed on public sector banking, then what the hell the owner is doing, who is the central government, and what the regulator is doing to control all these things. Because when you withdraw your money, when you put your money, if you are charged, then obviously they are not working as a banker only, they are working as a saukars. So it is, I have explained on the very 1st March that in the Mughal Samraj, it was a jizya tax, jizya kar. So bankers are now charging is a jizya type kar from those who are depositing the money and withdrawing the money. This is absurd. This has to be opposite. And depositors, as on today, they are not organized properly. So, Madam Sucheta Dalal's foundation, Moneylife Foundation, and All India Bank Federation, we are starting an online read petition, and we are appealing all the customers and depositors to register their protest and sign a petition to FM and PM.
You know, and you're so right about this, Mr. Utagi. The thing that is most ridiculous out of all of the things that are flashing on our screen is SBI. I find SBI completely ridiculous. And SBI has actually made a statement. The chairperson of SBI has made a statement saying, we will continue to charge until the RBI tells us to stop. Now, Sucheta Dalal telling us that the RBI is going to take its time to think about it. What it effectively means is going to allow these banks time to continue to charge customers until the RBI tells it to stop. The State Bank of India, after the first 3 transactions, charges you 150 rupees per transaction. If you don't maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 rupees in your SBI bank account, the State Bank of India will charge you up to 100 rupees per month, which it will take without permission, like a pickpocket, straight out of your bank account without asking you. Sujay Kantawala, the thing that we should remember is that the owner of SBI is not the central government of India, but the owner of SBI is the taxpayer of this country, whose money is being used to capitalize that bank. And it's again, unfortunately and ironically, our money all over again.
I fully agree, and these kind of charges, see, banks exist basically for the people, and majority of the people in this country who patronize State Bank of India and the kind of vast network that SBI has are the poor people. They have to have a complete mindset, they have to be humane in their approach, but it's not happening, unfortunately. All these taxes here and there which are taken, transaction fee, this fee, that fee, they all add up to their kitty. On one hand, you have more than 8 lakh crores as NPAs and majority with these nationalized banks. What is happening to those things? So therefore, I feel that if this is the answer that SBI is giving, that if the RBI tells us we won't do it and we don't have our own voice, I feel it's high time that we knock the doors of the High Court, because this is public interest. What more is in public interest than this kind of issues which will go before the court? And I'm 100% sure that the judiciary is a vigilant judiciary.
So you recommend, Sujay Kantawala, you recommend that public interest litigation be filed against all of the banks collectively, against the RBI, against the IBA. What are you recommending?
I recommend that at least against the RBI and some of the major banks who are made respondents, the petition should file. Maybe there will be other petitions filed and they can tag along. The moot issue that should not be lost focus of. The moot issues have to be drawn to the attention of the court, and even the judges are customers. Ultimately, we are all banks customers. We all use bank facilities. So everyone is going to be affected.
And post demonetization, we don't have a choice. We have to compulsorily use facilities of those banks. If on one hand we have to go for a cashless economy, and then on the other hand it has to be encouraged also. So I'm sure what Sucheta also said, that they have made online petitions, and I'm sure that the powers in Delhi and the PMO, etc., are definitely keenly watching this. But I feel that a straight point of law has arisen over here in this case. What is the service you are providing? And against that service, if I have to withdraw my own money, then why are you charging me for it? Just giving you an off-the-cuff example. So these issues can be taken up for judicial scrutiny, and this is public interest. And if I am going to be associated with any of this, Sujay Kantawala,
I'm willing to offer my services.
Will you support will you offer
I'm willing
your services?
I'm willing to support. I offer my services.
Sucheta Dalal, that is quite an offer. Fantastic. To be able to, file a class action suit. And we have Sujay Kantawala who's agreed to lend his services.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Vishwas Utagi.
Yeah, AIBA and Moneylife Foundation, together we are doing this job of filing a writ petition, and we are appealing thousands and lakhs of people to join it, and very soon, already one petition is going, another petition will also go. Question is, we have to make aware all these depositors that it is your money through which the bank is run, and more particularly, State Bank of India and 27 publisher banks are the people's bank, Arundhati Bhattacharya is not the owner of that bank. Similarly, the bank chairman, they do not own that bank. People are not aware that they are the owners of the bank. So now people have to assert their right. Now, demonetization process, they have become the captive clients.
Yes,
captive
it's very clear here at this point. And yes, I will come to you. It's very clear at this point that a public service bank. Let's think very carefully about the words public service bank. A public service bank is created by the government out of our taxpayer money. A third of everything we make that gets taken away at taxes and that is used to run a bank in public service, not to make money, not to please your shareholders and the stock market, not to have fancy press conferences and to hide your NPAs, but to actually perform a public service. Dhirendra Kumar, SBI here, completely abdicating that public service and ignoring the people who fund their capital.
No, absolutely. I think there is an urgent need to classify a set of service which is essential banking service, which should be made available to each and every citizen. and the government is driving this. Post demonetization, we have heard about we should have kept our money in the bank. All our legitimate income which were held in cash were considered to be illegitimate if we don't really park it in the bank. And then if there are restrictions, there is a precedence here. When the government wants to pursue a policy goal, then they put some kind of reference that this much should be the priority sector lending. This is meant for public good. So if this is classified, depositing money in the bank and taking money out from the bank should be classified as an essential service, and it should be completely free of cost, because this is something which is actually enabling public good. And this is achieving a policy goal, and there is a precedence. You have the priority sector lending, rule exposure for the banks. Even in the insurance sector, the insurance regulator mandates that this much policy should be sold in the rural areas. Even in the mutual fund, there is a regulatory discrimination in the sense that go to smaller towns and cities and you can charge extra money. So, if the government goal is that people should be part of the organized banking sector, things get financially get recorded and get acknowledged, and they get into the tax net, or things become more transparent, then I think it should be catalyzed by mandating a free and fearless access to these services.
I want to bring in Ryan Fernandes here, and the truth is, Ryan, that SBI or all of the other banks are just behaving like thieving children with their hands in the biscuit tin at this point, saying, I'm going to continue to take out of this tin until someone tells me to stop. They are aware of the fact that what they're doing is wrong, but they're just waiting to be told by the RBI to stop, and the RBI is obviously not going to stop them.
What I would like to say is, okay, if you want to charge, then see that there's money in the bank, or see that there's money in the ATM. There have been instances where I know people, and even with myself, where I've gone to an ATM and say I've requested to withdraw 20,000 rupees, but the ATM says go for a lower denomination. Then you got to go for 5,000, 10,000. It says even lower, so you go for a 5,000 denomination. And then to get that 20,000, I got to do 4 transactions in one day.
And then how can you count each of those 4 transactions and charge me for them?
And who's going to keep track of all those transactions? You want to charge people, okay, if you're charging, then see that there's money in the ATMs, there's money in the banks. People go to the banks, stand in long hours sometimes, and you don't get your money, you don't have enough money in the banks, or you're told, Roko, paisa aega. It's still the same. This ATM transaction thing happened to me a couple of days back when I wanted to withdraw 20,000 and I was only given 5,000. And
I also want to point out for all of our viewers watching all over the country, we understand that the money and the cash has not come to, it has not been as widely distributed all over the country as it is in Mumbai and Delhi. And these are not charges for customers in Mumbai and Delhi. These are charges for customers all across the country. Our phone lines are open, and you will not get a stronger panel than we have right now. I just want to take a couple of questions. Arvind is on the phone line from New Delhi. Arvind, you're on the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have my question is that I have taken a housing loan from HDFC.
Yes.
And I am not a banker myself. I came to know through the newspapers and the media report that there was a decrease in the percentage of the interest that they're charging. And just when I asked the bank, I said there is a decrease of about 1.5%. So they said we will deliver 0.15 to you directly, which would be adjusted, and maybe if you're paying 120 installments, this could result in 119. I said, what about the balance 0.85? He says, for that you'll have to come to the bank, pay us an amount of 5,700 rupees.
Yes.
And then this would be a change in the contract between me and the bank.
Yes.
So any change in the contract,
you have to pay some money out. That's completely unethical, and you're absolutely right. On your screen right now, viewers, these are the numbers. Right? If you are an old borrower, which means if you have a running home loan with HDFC Limited, not HDFC Bank, I apologize for that graphic. Old borrowers are currently paying 9.3%. New borrowers are being offered new loans at 8.3%. There is a whole 1% difference. Remember, if you borrowed 50 lakh rupees, that is a lot of money going out of your bank account every day. And that is completely unethical. Keshav is on the phone line from Bangalore. Keshav, go ahead.
Yeah, my point is that while the banks have tried to reduce the cost, initially when they said you will have to go to the ATM, the rational was that the brick and mortar expenses and the staff expenses will be reduced, and the alternate chances will be used by the customers. Now the ATM transactions are being set up. Okay. Similarly, the case with the paper statement. While all the advertisement says it is for the environmental cleanliness and things like that, which is a good part, you see the kind of plots, plus ACs and the kind of environmentally unfriendly things that they have. And on top of it, it is a green initiative. There is a huge...
Okay, fair enough. I understand what you're saying. Vashisht is also on the phone line from Kerala. Vashisht, go ahead.
Ma'am, if bank is maintaining a minimum deposit of 5,000 or 2,000 or 1,000, then bank should give interest rate equivalent to FD, fixed deposit interest rate on my minimum balance.
Absolutely. That's a fair point, because, that's, Harsh Roongta, that is a fair point. If I'm required to keep that money in the bank account and never take it out, and consider how many customers SBI has into 5,000 rupees each, the SBI should then pay fixed deposit rates and not savings bank account rates, because that's not a savings bank account amount. What a very good point that Vashisht just made. Harsh Roongta.
In fact, that point is recognized by the banks themselves. They have something that they call core deposits. I mean, that applies, forget about savings bank, they apply that even to current accounts. And that is why current accounts are so prized, because certain amount of money always remains in those accounts, and that's part of the earnings that the banks have. I think very, very clearly, 2-3 things are clearly happening here. One is, I think the level of anger is unprecedented. I mean, it's reached a level where I want to hush down the fact that I used to work for a bank. Absolutely. But I think the point is, the regulator is not asleep. The regulator has deliberately closed his eyes. That's absolutely clear. Whether that regulator is RBI, whether that regulator is National Housing Bank, I think they've all deliberately closed their eyes to what is happening on this. The another issue that I think is not being talked about here is that a lot of burden is being given being put by the government on the banks. If you talk about Jan Dhan accounts, now that does put a burden on the banks. Who should logically bear that cost? If the government has a certain policy initiative that is costing the banks some money, the government should be paying for it.
Yeah, it is.
Why should you or me be paying for it? So I think...
And SBI has come out very clearly and said that the reason why we are charging people for a minimum balance is to make up for the fact that we cannot make money off the Jan Dhan accounts. So because that is a free public service, we are going to have to charge you, and that's completely unfair, because at no point did I as a customer agree to make up or to pay for some sort of regulation that the government came up with. Now, this also holds for the fact that the RBI decided to change from MCLR, from base rate to MCLR. That is not my fault. You cannot charge me for that amount of money. Bejon Mishra, it's true, again and again, we keep coming back to the same thing, that banks and the RBI in this case are hoping and are banking on the fact that customers will not do anything about it. Now, we will not get angry enough to actually come out and write strong letters or come out onto the street, because I'm actually now, I want to go out and stand in front of the RBI office and ask them why they're not doing more.
See, the RBI's attitude...
Let Bejon Mishra come in and then I'll come back to you.
The strength of the consumers. And...
Go ahead, Mr. Mishra.
Please.
You see, what I want to say here is, irrespective of public or private sector banks, banks have to work in terms of efficiency. You see, what I find is that there is a huge burden of inefficiency which is put onto the customers. So like if the government is pushing the banks to have Jan Dhan account, it is good for them. They're going to have more customers, which means more transactions, more business. They should come out with innovative mechanisms of making, profit out of this opportunity. Instead of, looking at it as an innovative opportunity to be creative, they are trying to burden because they are inefficient. You see, what I want to tell you, the short point is, because the bank chairmen and the boards are not accountable to the customers and the parliament is sleeping over it, you see, the banks are charging the customers in order to hide their inefficiency. And this is where I'm coming from. You see, I am trying to say the banks have to live out of their own business model. They have to become efficient. You look at State Bank of India's premises. You see, those are prime properties. And look at the amount of space they occupy. They are not encouraging customers to come online. They are not encouraging customers to understand how technology can become an empowerment of the customer. They are not doing that. They are not doing any business in terms of understanding how the business needs to be functioning. And the private sector bank who are coming and investing in India from overseas, and even the private sector in India, like big banks like ICICI and all that, they are not made accountable to the customers. They are not at all being made to understand that
Vishwas
they need
Utagi.
to consult customers and seek their feedback to frame policies.
Vishwas Utagi, are the banks taking customers completely for granted? Do they believe that we are chumps who are never going to get together, we're never going to understand our rights, we're never going to spend enough time and energy saving the 100 rupees?
Yeah, as he is rightly saying that customers are being taken for granted, and the Reserve Bank of India being the regulator is not at all making any attempt to enlighten him, train him, this thing. Now, at the cost of the customers, banks are run. And now the inefficiency of the banks in handling the non-performing asset or willful and defaulters, now the common depositor is being taxed. This is something absurd, and a common customer has to oppose, because today State Bank of India is having 1 lakh crore non-performing asset, including the Vijay Malla's account. And when they are not in a position to recover it, and now they complain that fiscal indiscipline or financial indiscipline or credit indiscipline will be there if we forgo the loans of poor farmers, and they forgo the loan of or right of the loan of Vijay Mallya. So what is this logic of Madam Arundhati Bhattacharya? These people should question, and common depositors are asked to put minimum 5,000, and further they are being taxed if they are going for the 4th time withdrawal or depositing money. So question is, the common depositors must get organized. They must show their anger against such bankers, and they must show the anger the Reserve Bank of India, because really the villain of peace is the Reserve Bank of India all along the line.
Yes.
So in that context, the question of customers should not keep quiet. They should get organized, and all the employees associations must fight for the depositors, because ultimately the depositors are the raw material for the banks to run, and therefore we have to take care of the depositors' interests, and that's why
it's simply down to this. It's simply down to this. The banks are taking us for fools as customers. They're expecting us to be so busy with our day jobs and running our lives and running our homes, which, let's be honest, we are. They think that we will not hurt and we will not turn and we will not protest every time they take 100 rupees out of our pockets. Harsh Roongta, are they taking us for fools?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have this very famous example of a completely unsolicited service being provided, money being charged, and you have the option of opting out. That I've said in many ways. That's clearly, I mean, everything else is conceptually pickpocketing.
Yes.
This one is really pickpocketing. I mean, that is crossing a clear line. Being charged for an unsolicited service that I didn't ask for, and then being told that I have an option to opt out, I think that's clearly wrong. I think one big issue, as you said, yes, we are clearly being taken for granted, and one reason is that neither as borrowers nor as depositors, although we are very large in numbers, no longer are borrowers a very small minority, we are not a political constituency. I think, which MP can you think of who's even aware about the concerns of a person who's a depositor or who's a borrower? I think it is for the consumer organizations to build this as a political constituency. I think it is a big enough point now that we can build a political constituency around this.
Dhirendra Kumar, our Prime Minister on the 31st of December made a very clear statement about how small a number of people actually pay taxes. He was illustrating the fact that there are a large number of people in this country who don't pay taxes. But I think also it is fair for those taxpayers who are carrying the burden of this country on their shoulders, on their middle class salaries, that the government owes us accountability, at least on this point.
No, but that is more a matter of direct taxes. In fact, every citizen of this country pays taxes, and in fact, the indirect tax is basically the enormous low pressure of indirect tax is entirely a result of an inefficient government, because direct tax is an equitable way of taxing citizens. It is actually taxing the rich, or in a manner who can actually pay, but the government is to be blamed in terms of its tax machinery, or it has always found easy to clamp indirect tax, which is easy to administer and collect. But that aside, I think if government has taken as a policy that we need to really digitize, and we have to get more and more citizens as part of the organized financial system, then the sudden surge in charge cost of these banks being clamped right now is a serious impediment. But my bigger question is that what is the basis of it? On what basis somebody is actually arriving at a number that this is 150 rupee? Is there a basis to it? Has some input been done? Will it be the same for a very large bank? Will it be the same if it is coming from if this charge is coming from a very small bank? I think it is absolutely arbitrary, and it is just trying to look for an opportunity to take money wherever they can.
Absolutely. I want to bring in Sucheta Dalal here, because Sucheta, you made a very good point the last time we were talking. You said the banks are functioning as a cartel, and Dhirendra is saying that it's a completely arbitrary decision. Let's take, for example, SBI's decision of a minimum balance of 5,000 rupees per account. Now, that 5,000 rupees is uniform for whether someone is making 5 lakh rupees a month or whether there's someone making 7,000 rupees a month. In which case, on the other end of the spectrum, 5,000 rupees is a ridiculous amount of money to expect someone to keep in their bank accounts. Dhirendra is right that there is no regulation, there is no logic to how these things are being decided. And of course, the RBI, like always, has its eyes closed, willfully or otherwise.
Okay, there are 4 points I want to make. One is, since you talked about SBI, okay, they say Jan Dhan accounts. Now, in Jan Dhan accounts, the government tells us that there is 40,000 crores. So, Jan Dhan is not charity, or the government has to explain to us whether there is really 40,000 crore rupees in various bank accounts or not. If there is, then banks have a lot of money on which they have to be earning interest, and they have to recover all the costs. Second, we have no idea of what costs are, as Dhirendra Kumar correctly said, because if you look at SBI's charges, it's not just the minimum balance. Every single charge of SBI is more than the private banks. So while we accuse the private banks of charging us a lot, even if you want a demand draft, it is from 50 rupees to 10,000 rupees. Every charge that SBI has, including the cost of your debit card, the cost of your annual charges for your debit card, are singularly higher. I don't know how this can be justified for a public sector bank. If the idea is that quarter on quarter we want to make higher profits, I also want to know who is it for, because at the end of the day, nationalized banks are giving a fat check to the government of India, which means that the government is collecting money, maybe some shareholders are collecting money, and we as depositors are paying the price. It can't happen. And I think finally we have to make a point that for the first time, I think the anger is so enormous that almost every major NGO has joined the effort that we are making. It's not just Money Life Foundation, it's not just AIBA. The unique thing this time is it's Grahak Panchayat, it's All India Bank Depositors Association, it is an organization from Chennai, it is someone from Delhi. Bejon Mishra has lent his support. So every organization is getting together for the first time, because I think the anger is unbelievable. They're just ripping us off, and I think enough is enough. The RBI cannot get away with saying we will keep quiet. And this
Absolutely, very well said. In fact, we stand here on Magicbricks Now. We stand with Sucheta Dalal and everybody else who's fighting this battle. We will support the battle in every way. We will bring you updates on every step that the battle takes forward. Our Twitter handle is on your screen. If you're feeling angry, you want to get in touch, you want to be put in touch with Sucheta and her team, get in touch with us and we will facilitate that conversation. If you are angry, you have every right to be. You must join the fight and you must ask for justice, because that is your right as a customer. Jasbir Singh is on the phone line from Punjab. Bataiye.
मेरा एक थोड़ा सा आपको रिक्वेस्ट है। आप एक तरफ से तो कहते हैं तो सारे गरीबों का अकाउंट खोलो जी, सारे मोदी साहब ने बड़ा जोर शोर से अकाउंट खुलवा दिए। जो आदमी 300 रुपए दिहाड़ी करता है, उसने भी अकाउंट खोल दिया। वो 1000 रुपया रखेगा या 5000 रुपये महीने रखेगा तो नहीं उसको पैसे पड़ जाएंगे। तो वो क्या 5,000 में घर की रोटी नहीं चला सकता? बच्चों को भूखा मार दें इनके बैंकों को चलाने के लिए।
ये आपने सही बोला। He's making a very good point.
Absolutely.
Sujay?
Yeah, I agree, and that's what I said, that it's high time now that we have such right-minded people. There's so much data available to expose the insensitive approach and the complete non-accountability over here, and this kind of daylight robbery. Therefore, the PIL, according to me, as a lawyer and as a person who is also using the banking system and as a citizen, PIL is the only form available. No amount of letters here and there are going to. It's only the vigilant judiciary that has to be approached.
In fact, we have one more question, Sujay. I'll come back to you with this one. Megha is on the phone line from Mumbai. Megha, go ahead.
Hi. The question is for the lawyer on the panel.
Yes.
I called earlier to check on the same topic that he touched on. That what would be his views on a PIL? Because this is something which is totally in public interest.
Yes.
I mean, there are...
So actually, Sujay, tell us this. Now, we have like-minded people on this panel who have all come together with this same view. If the PIL were to be filed and you were to lend your services, how would this happen? How do customers get in touch with you and be part of this movement?
Look, for a PIL, you need one citizen or any association. As we have Sucheta, we have Bejon, we have all other like-minded people. All you have to do is to make the Union of India party, the Finance Ministry and the RBI. Then you have to ask the court to call the respondents and then lay down the guidelines and issue appropriate directions. Look, the Supreme Court has also entertained postcards by under-trials who are being tortured in jails as petitions. Courts have suo motu taken up issues. Absolutely. For example, orphanages where minors were sexually abused. So we have a very vigilant judiciary and we have a bench that is specially dedicated to hearing PILs and citizens' issues. So therefore, I feel that PIL is the right remedy available, where you have an intelligent debate in court. You have the court examining impartially the issues that you are going to raise, the different points, and the instances which are there. There is so much data available for the court to appreciate, and thereafter call upon the respondents and lay down the law.
Absolutely, and that is how the PIL will be filed, and we will support it here on the channel. Raj Kishore is on the phone line from Punjab. Raj Kishore जी, बोलिए.
हाँ जी. हेलो.
हाँ, हमें आपकी आवाज आ रही है, आप बताइए, बोलिए.
हाँ जी मैम, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है कि गवर्नमेंट ने जैसे कहा कि जनधन अकाउंट ओपन करना है, ऑपोजिशन को शो कर दिया कि हमने 25 लाख बंदों का जनधन अकाउंट ओपन कर दिया, ठीक है. गरीब बंदों का उन्होंने SBI में अकाउंट ओपन कर लिया और उस जनधन अकाउंट को उन्होंने आधार कार्ड के थ्रू लिंक कर दिया कि LPG की सब्सिडी देंगे. ऊपर से ये बैंकों ने अपना बोल दिया कि 5,000 रुपये मिनिमम बैलेंस उसमें मेंटेन करो, नहीं तो फिर 100 रुपये पर ट्रांजैक्शन आपका मतलब मिनिमम बैलेंस का काट देंगे.
नहीं, राज किशोर जी, ये जो मिनिमम बैलेंस है ये जनधन अकाउंट पे नहीं है. जनधन अकाउंट पे कोई मिनिमम बैलेंस नहीं रहती.
अच्छा, वो बाकी दूसरे अकाउंट पे है.
जी, बाकी के जो सेविंग्स अकाउंट है उन पे है. तो सेविंग्स अकाउंट से 100 रुपए निकाल के वो जनधन अकाउंट की सर्विस भर रही है SBI.
So we are paying for it.
We are paying for it.
तो एक बात बताइए, जो SBI है वो इंडिया का सबसे बड़ा नेटवर्क है, ठीक है
जी.
सभी गरीब बंदों ने उसमें अकाउंट मेंटेन किया है
जी.
अगर वो बंदे 5,000 रुपये मेंटेन नहीं कर पाएंगे तो वो क्या करेंगे, अकाउंट बंद करेंगे, ठीक है. अगर वो अकाउंट बंद करेंगे, ये जो गवर्नमेंट बोल रही थी कि हमने ये अकाउंट ओपन करवाए हैं इतने बंदों का, उसका क्या बेनिफिट हुआ? लोगों ने तो फिर से दोबारा अकाउंट बंद कर लिया.
Absolutely. That's a good point. Sucheta, this is a good question. The fact is, with this minimum 5,000 rupee balance, you're disincentivizing bank accounts. If I am a housewife who has 10,000 rupees and this is the circulating money that I keep, I'm going to keep it in my cupboard. Why will I give it to SBI? Or you will have more people who will want to convert their accounts to Jandan accounts, thereby putting more pressure on the system. There's absolutely no logic to this at all.
there is no logic, and I think all the charges for a regular account are so high that it doesn't make sense anymore. You're paying 2 rupees per check leaf, and I think Dhirendra Kumar was making a very excellent point the other day at a discussion. He said that banks just simply do not tell us what they debit from our accounts. So even when you get an SMS about a transaction, it's not about what they are picking your pocket for. And I think that point is so valid, and I think they need to disclose every time, even when they charge you 2 rupees for a check leaf, they have to give you an SMS to say that, so that at the end of the month you know how much the bank is picking your pocket for, and that doesn't happen today.
Transparency.
Maybe Dhirendra Kumar wants to say something more on that.
The anger is also accentuated by the fact that there is no transparency. Today, as a customer, what you want, you're procuring a service.
Absolutely.
And at that stage, you want transparency. It's okay. I understand that even banks have to run their business. They also have to pay salaries. They have got overheads. Fair enough. I can understand. But be transparent and give the customer the right to elect whether he wants a service or not. Don't just foist any service on him and disguise it.
So what Harsh Roongta was pointing out, and banks are doing this, Bejon Mishra, in reverse, where they will send you an email. Right. And Dhirendra wrote a column about this. I'm going to ask him about this. Dhirendra, they'll send you an email saying that we are now going to charge you 100 rupees, and HDFC Bank did this, 100 rupees every quarter for maintaining your account. If you decide you don't want this service, scroll all the way at the bottom of this email and click on a button that says you don't want it. So the absence of the action, if you've not clicked on the button, and every HDFC Bank account holder should go through your inbox and find that email, the absence of the action means that you've agreed. And that is unethical. And that is the opposite of the transparency that Sujay just pointed out that we all deserve.
I generally delete all these messages. We don't even look at these mails.
No, that is that particular instance is actually downright crooked. That I think is, it amounts to pickpocketing. But I have a more fundamental point. When we trust banks. We trust banks to the extent that we trust public sector banks even more. And when we put our money in the bank and bank decides to levy a charge, and it simply has access to my wallet, it debits the money. Like any other bill which is presented, by every time I write a check, the bank informs me that a certain check is presented or something is to be debited. I think all bank charges which are not of routine nature must get authorized by the customer. This should be like any other payment which I am authorizing. The bank can't at its free will choose to debit my account because it has access to my money. This, I think, is a very fundamental point, and this, I think, should be implemented. And today we have the technology to effect it. For every credit card transaction, we send a OTP. We have a second authentication. So why not for this? That am I authorizing it, or this service will not be provided to you? And this is the kind of thing which should be made of. This is something which will only can come from regulation. It will not be volunteered by the bank.
Absolutely. Harsh Roongta?
I just want to make another point. While the focus is so much on the depositor side, and clearly I think that is the more vulnerable part of our society. But just look at what the borrowers are undergoing.
You're putting up with, absolutely.
The borrowers, people like Rayan who are on this show, have been completely and totally cheated, completely under the watch. There is no two doubts about it. And now please remember, 1400 crores of subsidy is going to go to home loan borrowers under the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana. And now if the home loan customers are overcharged, it is the government of India's money that the bankers are charging. Please remember that as well.
I will bring in Ryan here. We're going to run on your screen right now the difference in all of the banks. This is not one or two, all of them. The difference in what they're charging new borrowers and what they're charging old borrowers. Remember, they want to be able to grow the business. So they're offering great rates to the new people who are coming in with loans. But the ones who already have home loans on floating rates are being cheated. Now, bank robbery as a phrase means something else altogether after this 1 hour show. Ryan, what is the experience that you had?
I think this is total robbery, because for my experience also, I had a high loan, and every time I went to the bank from Jan, I've been told, sir, GM will sign it, someone else ka approval rukha hai, you're waiting for someone else's approval. So they keep dilly-dallying you all the way for about 3 months so they can get that extra money. Even if you have a big loan, say you can save at least 15,000 to 20,000 a month. So they'll pull that extra money from you, and then you got to bargain with them, and then once you said, they'll say, okay, sir, now you have to give us 12,000 or 15,000. You got to come again to the bank, then fill in the paperwork, and then they would reduce it. And that too, not to what the new customer is being offered. They would say, sir, new customers at say 9.3, you will get 9.6 or 9.7. I feel, in fact, another friend of mine went to the bank and he got another rate. So even that is selective. Like they say, no, aadmi dekh ke loan deta hai. They decide your rates and stuff like that.
Yes.
It's not fixed for everybody.
It's completely arbitrary. There's no logic and there's no regulation. Vishwas Utagi.
See, when you said that it is a great bank robbery, those who are really robbed, almost 16 lakh crore, NPA plus CDR is 16 lakh crore. They are robbers and they are not punished. They are scot-free.
Yes.
And here, we the honest citizens and depositors, our pockets are being pickpocketed, and this is another real robbery. So robbers are not punished and we are penalized. This is the irony of the situation.
This is the irony of the situation, where the banks are robbing the customer and not the other way around. And this time the gunpoint is from the teller's side and not from the other side. Deepak Mittal is on the phone line from Delhi. Deepak, go ahead.
Good evening to all.
Yes.
My question is, and my question is specifically to the anchor, you madam.
Yes.
The topic is very, very good, but I fail to understand, or was it just deliberate that you not called the representative of BJP on this show? I would have wanted them to be on this show and answering to questions of people like me and your esteemed panelists. Right. They all talk very big about Modi, and they all talk very big about the finance manager and
They
other
won't
people.
come.
Why the hell they are not here?
They will not come.
And understanding our pain, and why the hell nobody from RBI is here to be hearing this? Because my experience is, what I feel is, this is a very good show, your debate is excellent, but this might not go to those ears, it might fall on deaf ears of the government.
Well, let me tell you, that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it. The RBI and the Indian Bank Association, like I said, have turned down all opportunities to respond to these questions. We sent them emails. We asked them to respond on email. They did not. We sent them reporters. We said, give our reporter a bite on camera. They did not. We invited them to this panel. They did not. We also sent invitations and emails to every bank we are discussing, and they have all declined to be part of this conversation. So unless we are going to tell them that this is a panel discussion where we're going to celebrate the brilliance of the Indian banks and give them awards, I doubt they're going to come to these shows, because if you're being honest, and on this channel we're completely honest about what's being discussed, they've decided not to be part of this conversation. Now, as far as having a representative of the BJP here, we could do that. But the truth is that the buck in this case stops with the RBI. If we bring in a representative of the BJP as a political party, how much really can that person do to regulate banks? And I'll take the question again to Sucheta Dalal. Sucheta, do you think that it's important here for the RBI, for banks, for the IBA, which is really an official name for a cartel of banks, to start responding to customers' questions? And by the way, we also have an ombudsman whose job is supposed to be to respond to customers' questions. Where is he? What is he doing?
Yeah. Actually, RBI has dozens of empty organizations. They have something called BCSBI, Banking Codes and Standards Board, which does absolutely nothing. It used to have an RBI deputy governor, at least a retired deputy governor heading it. Now they have abdicated that responsibility also. It's taken over by the IBA. So the irony is that the consumer side, which used to be represented by the BCSBI, is also controlled by the IBA, which is a bankers' cartel. And I think I take the caller's point very well, which is that the finance ministry or the president of India is the owner of all the 20 nationalized banks, right? So I think they also are accountable to us. We need to start asking them, are you doing something about getting the RBI, you have to ask them questions. I don't see why they cannot ask the RBI, why is it letting us, the customers, be cheated? What happened to the consumer charter? It was issued in 2014. Why is it that the banking ombudsman is so limited in its scope? I don't think it even looks at home loans the way it ought to. They say, is there an agreement? The agreement is flouted. I mean, that's not the original agreement that people signed. There are new agreements being signed every time the floating rate loan is changed. And what is the owner and the President of India doing?
Absolutely. What is the finance minister doing? This is your responsibility. And we saw the finance minister and the finance ministry work very closely with the RBI on an inch-by-inch attention to detail during the demonetization process, proving that you can do it. You can issue an inordinate number of circulars in 2 weeks if you decide to pay attention. You've just decided that we as customers don't matter, that you're not going to pay attention, that you're not going to give in that time and money. I want to very quickly take a few more phone calls. RC Soni is on the phone line. Mr. Soni, go ahead. We can hear you.
I'm RC Soni.
Yes.
See, my son had taken a loan from ICICI Bank back in 2009 for 45 lakhs for 20 years. That was at the rate of 10.5%.
Yes.
Now I'm told on 1st of March 17, it was reduced to 8.2%.
Okay.
So he has gone to the bank. The bank arbitrarily charged him 6,500 rupees to be paid to them.
Yes.
And there was no conceptual logic. It is just an autocratic and coercive attitude on the part of the ICICI Bank.
Yes.
When it comes to raising the rate of interest, you do it without intimating. And when it comes to reducing the rate of interest,
you're charging money.
You are charging something for which we are not ready. So we had to pay that 6,500 rupees under protest. But you please tell us, how should we fight for our rights with the ICICI Bank?
Absolutely. And I'm going to take one more question. Akhtar is on the phone line from Mumbai. Akhtar, very quickly, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, very quickly. Yes.
Mr. Modi's, talks about digital India and everything will blow up on his face altogether. For the simple reason, like, in order to have the digital India, they should become more lenient on such policies. On the contrary, they are doing the other way. Have a day when you are not doing any transaction with the banks. Just ignore it for that day. If that works, fine. Doesn't work, try a couple of days again. No, take the money out of the bank and start paying in cash and start dealing in cash. We don't
But you can't take the money out of the bank because after you cross a certain amount, you can't do cash transactions anymore. And that's the problem, Sujay Kantawala. Whoever wants to clear this up, I mean, ideally, Harsh Roongta, it would be an ideal world where we would turn away the banking services and say, we are not going to use your services anymore. But we can't.
Now it's
How do you
illegal.
live without banking services?
It's illegal. They've amended the finance bill. The limit has been dropped from 3 lakhs to 2 lakhs. So if you take a receipt of more than 2 lakhs, you can be charged a fine of 2 lakhs. So I think paying in cash is no longer an alternative. And we don't want to go back to the Stone Age.
But I'll tell you what it is. So here you have, and I'm going to say this out loud, here you have a government that has tied one hand behind our backs and said that you cannot do without the banks.
Correct.
And the other hand, you've got the bank that has pulled our other hand behind our backs and said that we're going to charge you for every move that you make. They sound like they're working together. They sound like they're taking us for a ride together. And if they mean to be customer friendly, either the banks or the government or the finance ministry in this case, one of them is going to have to stand up and be accountable for what's going on. The finance ministry that decided to amend the rules and to force us to use banks and to force us to go cashless is going to have to stand up now and take accountability for the fact that banks are making hay when the sun shines. Banks are taking advantage of demonetization and making money that they have absolutely no entitlement to. They are robbing us. They are picking up pockets, and the government is allowing them to do so by creating an environment when they can do it without conscience, without accountability. We will not allow it. I will take the suggestion of the people who called on the show. We're going to invite a representative as senior as possible of the BJP on this conversation when we have it next. But I will remind every bank, and I understand and I know from the phone calls we received after this show that you are watching. I will remind you that we will continue to do this. We will continue to support Sucheta Dalal and team. We will support Sujay Kantawala as he takes a PIL into the Mumbai High Court. We will support this battle until you learn to do ethical business. Because that is how you respect your customers. Not by putting out ads that tell us that you think that you care about us and that you are the bank to choose. I'll show you how to tell us how to care. Stop charging us money, stop picking our pockets and stop robbing us dry. Thanks for watching.